This is my 1999 Lexus GS400, and I'm gonna swap out the starter. I've already done this once, probably about 10 years ago, so unfortunately I'm gonna have to do it again. It's kind of a big job. You have to do a lot to get to the starter because it's under the intake itself. Maybe you've seen other videos, maybe you're familiar with this job, but it's big. One thing I did last time, and I know I did this last time because you can see the anti-seize I put on this. This is the fuel line. Leaving the fuel injector and all that on the intake itself will help you a lot, especially with these older vehicles. You don't want to disrupt any of these O-rings or anything like that. So it'll take the fuel rail off with the intake and it'll simplify the whole job. So you'll need to bust this loose and then take off a bunch of the other tubing, the air intake, etc., etc. We don't want to disrupt the coolant going through this throttle body. So you also want to kind of pull this off and just get it out of the way enough that you can lift the intake up. Really not bad at all. The only thing I'm going to say is right off the bat, I broke 2 connector pins. Well, not pins, I should say, but these little clips that you would push to pull the connector off. I mean, this car is 25 years old, not really surprising, the plastic's brittle, but everything's coming apart pretty easily. To get the wire harness out, that was kind of, you know, there's, I think, 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, and then you can kind of push this out of the way. You can also see I disconnected this fuel line here. Here's the other end, so this will be able to slip out when I bring the intake out. This side, same kind of thing, getting the injector harnesses off. All those came off without breaking. Maybe they're made out of a different plastic, a little bit more heat resistant because they're so close. But pulled that off to the side. That back passenger one was the hardest one to get. What else should I highlight? Oh, I'm putting all the bolts back where they came from. I don't want to be trying to figure out where stuff goes. Throttle body is really easy to come apart. It was 2 14 millimeter nuts, maybe 12 millimeter with 2 bolts. They are there. So everything's going really smoothly so far, knock on wood. I'm gonna go ahead and start taking off the intake bolts. We are progressing really well. You need a good magnet though. So there are 2 nuts and 3 bolts on each side of the intake. First nut's there, second nut is kind of way in the back. It's the most aft towards the firewall. Then you have your 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3 right there. Same on this back side. It's a little tricky, but if you have a good magnet, you'll be able to loosen it up all the way and pull them out. So now the intake is loose, good to go. So I'm gonna try and lift this up. It's gonna be tough. It would be better if I had a second pair of hands, but you know, we'll give it a shot. 1 minute later, not that bad. I actually ended up climbing up, putting 1 foot here, 1 foot on this strut tower, and I was able kind of to hoist it straight up, kind of like an engine lift would. So myself, I was able to do it, but you know, I kind of had to get in a weird spot. Like I said, foot there, and then lift straight up. Here she is with both fuel rails on, still all the injectors on. Here's where we disconnected the fuel. You can see maybe a little bit better now. Here's the nut, bolt, 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 nut. This had to come with it, this sensor, but that's it, man. It's out. There's the starter. We're gonna try and get the bolts on the back of this without disrupting this coolant crossover. I want to remove as little as possible just because this is an old car. But first things first, let's tape up the intakes and then we can go ahead and try and clean up some of the dust and debris in there. Honestly, not that hard of a job so far. I mean, the toughest thing was getting to the access to these back. This is a 14 millimeter bolt and then another 14 millimeter bolt and then a 12 millimeter bolt. So my process was to take this 12 mil off and then I could kind of wiggle this harness around a little bit. I was able to get a 1/2 inch drive wrench back behind to get this 14 mil just cracked loose, and then I could finger loosen it from there. And then this one, I was actually able to sneak a 14 millimeter wrench kind of through this gap from this way and crank it loose. That's the process I did. Again, not that tough. And if you remember, I mentioned I did this job about 10 years ago. Well, look at this. I don't know, you know, I was kind of in high school, so I probably bought the cheapest starter made in China. That is not gonna get it done. Donald Trump would not like that in China. So I actually bought, you know, because I have money now, I bought a Denso starter. So this is gonna hopefully last me for the rest of the lifetime of this car. Just reverse process at this point. Get this sucker in, come in here, add the battery cable to this, right? Which was a 12 millimeter bolt. Give you guys a little idea about how I'm doing this. So I'm sneaking the hand back between the firewall and this harness, and you're able to get this thing going. Again, it's not hard. It's just you got to figure out the right angles to get some fingers on it. But yeah, there you go. It's coming through. So this is the first 14 millimeter bolt. I'm gonna go ahead and start the second one here, and then I'll go ahead and tighten these up. Got the Lexus OEM gaskets. If you buy these from Toyota or Lexus, make sure you get quantity 2. I made a mistake. I ordered one thinking it was a pair, but really it was just one bank that came with it. So now I got 2 in there. I'm gonna go ahead and try and lift the intake and get it back on and start bolting things back up. There we go. That's that. Kind of awkward, but it works. It's the same way I took it out too. So I got the 4 these studs you got to line up, and then it drops right down. And I just was being careful not to get any of these cables snapped in there or whatever. So just try and watch what you're doing. Let's check this side. Looks good on this side. Doesn't look like it pinched anything, so I should be able to put the bolts on and then start clipping up some of these electronics. I just did the first round of torquing, so 8 foot-pounds or about 96 inch-pounds. You do a star pattern. So I started with this front nut here, then went to that corner, then did this corner, then that corner, then here, there. And you make a star. The idea behind that is you kind of evenly distribute the torque. And then the final torquing is 13 foot-pounds, which I think is 156 inch-pounds or whatever, depending on what kind of torque wrench you got. But you're gonna do the same pattern again, right? Crisscross. And that way it sits nice and even. But that's it, man. The torque, and then you kind of just slap things back together and you're good. All right, I think I got everything tidied up here. All the hoses connected, all the electrical connectors up. I got all the intake stuff torqued down, hooked up, batteries hooked up all the way. Let's give this a shot. Let's see what happens. This car's been sitting for a while. There you go. Ooh, right up, baby. Look at that. All right, we did it. No big deal. That's how you swap your starter on a 99 GS400.